Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Q&A. I'm Sharita Morrison, professor at Coppin State University, and I have the privilege of being here with Scott Phillips Esq. Scott is coming to us from the Mid-Atlantic Minority Business Development Agency Advanced Manufacturing Center in Baltimore. And he comes sharing over 30 years of experience serving large and small business and helping them in building capacity and scaling up services in their community and abroad. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started and jump into this Q&A. So if you missed our earlier session, we want to go ahead and get started by just jumping in and having Scott give us a very brief recap on what was shared earlier so that we can get into the questions that are being asked.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Morrison. The Mid-Atlantic Advanced Manufacturing Center works with businesses throughout the region from Virginia up through New Jersey, providing advice and counsel. And the advice and counsel really is in a number of very specific areas. Access to capital, where we're working with firms to try to figure out how to find monies that will help them grow their business. Access to contracts, so we assist them with procurement opportunities. Access to markets, figuring out how they move from perhaps where they are and expand their market opportunities. A strategic business consulting, which involves really kind of figuring out where they are, understanding what it is they want to do, and helping to map out plans to get there. Global business development. So we work with organizations like Exim Bank to help our clients understand how to sell in global markets. And also, because we're focused on manufacturing, we provide technical assistance and training for manufacturers, both from a production perspective and also from a business development perspective. And then last, but certainly not least, is as advocates. So we advocate on behalf of our manufacturing clients when it comes to regulations. We advocate on funding that is coming out of government organizations to support them. We advocate in the private sector so that larger corporations will reach out to do business with them. So it's big. We're big on advocacy. What we've tried to do, and one of the things that we learned when we began this work about 5 years ago, is that the ecosystem in manufacturing is a challenge in and of itself, right? But the ecosystem for minority manufacturers was even a greater challenge. Many of our clients, we call them, were working in silos. And so we've attempted to bring them together so that they can learn from one another, but also they can collectively leverage their strength to reach out to the larger organizations so that they can have a voice. And when I talk about larger organizations in the manufacturing space, they would be organizations like the Regional Manufacturing Institute of Maryland, which is a great advocacy group, but it's also a great networking group for manufacturers. All of our clients, once they become a client of the center, we engage them also with RMI. The same is true with the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. The MEP, there are MEPs in every state in the United States. They're very significantly funded from the U.S. Department of Commerce and usually from the states in which they sit. And they provide technical assistance and resources to their clients. So we've gotten tied pretty closely to the hip to MEP to make sure our clients get to take advantage of those resources as well. So in addition to providing those direct advice and counsel, we also serve as kind of the glue that brings people together and kind of leverages resources to help our clients grow.
That's awesome. So you've shared a mouthful around the breadth and depth of resources that you have to offer. So as we think about entrepreneurship, especially entrepreneurship in the city of Baltimore, we know that we have nationwide statistics about businesses not working, businesses failing. So it's truly an advantage to have organizations like yours and the one being developed at Coppin State University. What would you say if you had to give the top three focus strategies for small businesses being developed in our city, what would they be? What would they be from you and your perspective?
So, in terms of the number one challenge that we get with our clients is access to capital. And so, building, um, I don't want to call them programs, but building opportunities for minority owned businesses to access capital, whether it's through the traditional bank, through alternative sources of financing, through venture capital. That's the number one challenge in the minority business community. Our businesses don't have the same access through, let's say, the initial round of funding through friends and family. The net worth in the African American, the Latinx community does not match that of the greater community. And so access through those normal early stage funding sources is very limited. So that's the number one thing in terms of support. The number two thing that we hear from our clients, particularly manufacturers, it's interesting. They are really good generally at building their product, right? If you go in and you talk to, previously you had Fiber Electronics that Ron interviewed in the main tent with Mupavis Razvi. He understands his product like no one else. He doesn't have the time to go out and market and sell. So much of his business comes from referral. And that's great. And that'll keep you going. But if you want to grow exponentially, you've got to have a marketing and business development mindset. And so that's one of the things that we're working on very closely with our clients. So that would be number two. And then the third is really understanding the business of manufacturing as a whole and engaging in the ecosystem. I talk about ecosystem, I say that word a lot because it is important that our firms plug into the ecosystem, right? You don't know what you don't know, but when you're in the room and you hear what's going on with larger corporations, whether they be as big as Under Armour, which is here in the region, or a company like I can think of a number here, a number of firms here locally that are smaller but are doing really, really well because they figured out the niche and they're part of the ecosystem and they leverage it.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question from the audience. What are some of the necessary items that manufacturing business owners should have in place before seeking funding?
Great question. One of the things that you got to have is you got to have your books in order, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that we realized during the midst of the pandemic, specifically as it related to how do we sustain these businesses, um, and opportunities presented themselves like the payroll protection program. We spent a lot of time in triage in that first 30 to 60 days, helping our firms get their things in order so that they could apply for the money. So books in order, first thing. Second thing is understanding what you're going to use the money for, being very clear and very specific. If in going after funding, you need it because you need equipment, understand the equipment you need, understand the cost, and then understand if I buy this equipment, what is the yield going to be? How is that going to increase my revenue stream? How am I going to pay that loan back? Or whether it's a loan or somebody is giving you money from an equity position, they have an expectation of a return. So understand what that return is going to be.
Excellent. So people are the heartbeat of our organizations. You know, staffing, having the right individuals working within our organization. So we've gotten the capital, we've marketed our product, we're working within those ecosystems and everything's moving. Can you talk to us a little bit about what new business owners should look for as they not only begin to staff their businesses with qualified and quality employees, but what they should do to maintain
Yeah. So in terms of staffing, that's a really big challenge, and we've seen that as well in our organizations. Making the right choice, um, particularly early on as a smaller business, can be a challenge. So what we say is this: you got to figure out fit, you've got to figure out skill set, whether you're going to spend the time and the effort to train or you're going to bring people in who are already trained. And so those are choices that you have to make. But once you've made that choice, then you need to make an investment in those individuals. Now, that investment may not be in salary. That investment may be in benefits. That investment may be in flexible schedule. You've got to figure out for some of our folks who are in the manufacturing industry, how am I going to get people to me? Where am I physically located? And can I, if I'm not located in an easily accessible location, how do I help to get those people to me? How do I make what I do, and I use this term, please forgive me, how do I make manufacturing feel sexy, right?
Mhm.
One of the biggest challenges is young people often don't see manufacturing as like going to work in the bank or going to work, on, technology, right? They just don't see it. The reality is the salaries in manufacturing are generally higher than most, and people don't realize it. So, what are the skills that you can tout that these individuals are going to acquire that will allow them to be transferable, right?
Yes.
CNC machining, as an example, um, tailoring skills. If you really grab onto some tailoring skills, you will have a job for life, right? Um, Even in food processing, if I understand the process and I get certified and I'm qualified, you will have a job literally for life. Because when we talk about making things, right, that is the original entrepreneurship, right? Not
Mhm.
selling, but making, creating something. So you've got to make your employees feel good about that. And then you've got to figure out the benefit package.
Yes, awesome. Excellent, excellent. So I have another question from the audience. In Baltimore, is there a great opportunity for new manufacturing business, or should we think global?
So yeah, we should always think global, right? But is there opportunity for new manufacturing businesses in Baltimore? Yes, I think we are well positioned as a community. Organizations like Made in Baltimore are bringing attention to the small manufacturers here in the city. We have what we do at the Minority Business Development Agency, so the resources are there. We have dormant facilities, right? Dormant properties, buildings that are can be retrofitted to support. What we have in Baltimore today, particularly when it comes to innovation and advanced technologies, we do a lot of the R&D. We build a lot of the new technologies. However, we're not manufacturing them here. Great examples. If you think about what is happening at the University of Maryland medical system with some of the R&D that's taking place, or you think about Johns Hopkins with a lot of the R&D that's taking place. We've got the intellectual capital to conceive it, but we're not leveraging the resources locally to build it. That is the next wave, I believe, for the Baltimore metropolitan area is to figure out how to manufacture here locally, how to repurpose some of the warehouses and facilities that we have to do that work. With the new monies that are coming through what I would call CARES Act 2. There's funding that will be available for infrastructure. Some of that infrastructure, I believe, will be in repurposing buildings to provide advanced technology opportunities in the urban core. And so I think people should think about it that way.
Excellent, excellent. And I couldn't agree more. My mind always wanders riding down the streets of Baltimore at what could be in all of these massive warehouses. So we're coming down to the wire with our time, but I just want to know more about your experience and what has shifted since we've experienced this global pandemic, and the speeding up of technology and the transitions needing to become more global, as you said in your last statement. What advances or advantages have you seen come out of working in and through this recent pandemic that has sped up the need for more manufacturing, or what have been some of the disadvantages you've seen as well?
Well, one of the advantages I've seen is a reality check, right? If you think about what happened with PPE and the inability to access PPE created opportunities for local companies to produce, right, this protective equipment. We've had several of our clients who when their primary business was challenged by the pandemic, they pivoted and they began producing gowns and masks and shields, and growing that business. The reality is that that is not going to be sustained, in my opinion. So they took an opportunity to build a skill set. Now, how do we leverage that skill set to do something else? That filled the void, it filled the gap. I gained expertise. How do I leverage that expertise to go forward? So that's one example of what I see as a positive that came out of the pandemic. Another thing that came out of the pandemic is we all realized that we do have to rely on technology, that we do have to figure out how to communicate in this virtual world. And if for those who have embraced it, the opportunities abound because now I'm actually reaching more people through this medium that we're dealing with
Yes.
today, right? Than I could meet one on one on any given day. So, how do I leverage that? How do I work through social media in a commercial environment? We think about social media, we think about digital media when we're on Instagram and we're on Facebook, etc. How do I leverage that for my business to grow my business? And I think there are wonderful opportunities. I do want to go back to one thing, and I know we're counting down. When you talk about repurposing businesses, I mean repurposing properties, we have a wonderful example just down the street from Coppin with citywide youth development. And that's the model that I continue to think of. We work closely with them. They have taken a warehouse on North Avenue and turned it into a clothing manufacturing and a food processing business, 11,000 square feet, $2 million, state of the art food processing and clothing manufacturing,
Wow.
right? That's the model. And we can do that across this city, across other cities up and down the Eastern Seaboard who have excess building capacity, right? We have a workforce that is available, folks that need jobs directly in urban communities. So that's the model.
Excellent. And you may not be able to answer the question, but an audience member wants to know, as they build and develop products in their home, how might they be in touch with you? Should they wait until they establish themselves more to be in touch with your agency, or could they just reach out immediately? So maybe you can give us some information on how to reach you and at
Sure.
what point should they do it?
Sure. So if you're just starting out in your home, generally that's not where we began working with clients. However, we are part of an ecosystem, as I said. Made in Baltimore is a great place to start. And Made in Baltimore just launched a new program focused on home based businesses that ultimately want to move out and move into commercial space. So I would strongly suggest you go there. But we'll take a call or an email from anyone. So our number is 443-401-0242. That's 443-401-0242. My email address is in, as in the name Norman, in S Phillips at baltimorembda.com. And you can always reach us on the web. You